Everybody, welcome tonight to the Town Council special meeting this evening, Tuesday, August the 30th, 2022, at 6 o'clock. And I'm going to go right into the meeting, and Madam Clerk.
Present.
Valerie Willow. Here. William Dietrich. Tom Lombardi.
Here.
James Murray.
Here.
Christopher Murray.
Here.
Jack Perry.
Here.
Paul Chaplinsky.
Here.
Victoria Triano.
And I'm here. And although it's not listed, I would like to do the pledge, please. Could we all stand for the pledge? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. Before we get into our report on special committees, I just want to explain a little bit to the folks that are here. We all understand it on the dais, but for those that are here, this is a special meeting, and it's used very rarely, but it is used when we feel that something needs to be discussed quickly. And so last we were at the we were at the library building committee meeting. And there is a meeting pending with our town manager on September 6th, I believe, Mark?
The town manager plus the chairman of the building committee, the librarian, and Mary Baker.
Thank you. And at that meeting, it's a very serious meeting. They're going to be discussing our request for a grant. And we felt that it was important for us to get together to discuss that a little bit further. Whether we continue to wait on the state to either approve or disapprove our request for a grant is very important, because should they wish not to give us the grant, we then would be penalized for 5 years from going back to the state library board for another grant, and that is very difficult. If we, in fact, after discussion this evening, feel that it is in the town's best interest to withdraw the grant, there is no penalty involved at all. We can reapply next year. So that really is before us. And so the focus tonight is very, very narrow. We are really discussing that and that question only. There is time later on for public communication, but again, I would ask everyone to understand that we are focused on that question this evening. We're going to have a regular meeting coming up in a couple of weeks, but tonight is a very focused meeting. So, and I thank you all for being here. It was important that we held this meeting tonight. So thank you, everybody. All right. So I'm going to get right into the report of special committees, and that would be the Library Building Committee. And I'm going to go to Jim. Jim, could you report, please?
Madam Chair, over the past several weeks, we have had a situation with the state library grant where we are being told that we are null and void because of the way that we proceeded with our plans. On several occasions, we've been notified by the state that they recommend that we withdraw our grant. They said they'd like us to voluntarily forfeit the grant and reapply it another time. And the reason for this is that and I'll read this from the state. It says, unfortunately, this does not change the fact that the complete redesign, new site location, and the fact that Sullyton must go back out to fundraise negates the state library board approved project and the bond commission's release of funds. Sullyton is aware of this, which is why we recommend they forfeit and come back in 2023. And she says the process that we're going through now is the process that libraries go through prior to applying for a state library grant. So it seems to me that when the grant was submitted, there was an understanding by the state, whether it was true or not, that we were going to use the architect that the library board was consulting with. And since we went for a sum of money to build the library, and we felt that it was important to get the best possible design for usage, and also the best construction manager for delivering that on time, that we chose to basically start over. So what she's basically telling us is that no matter what we tell her, we've tried to communicate with them to explain that we are using a new architect, and we have a design that's slightly smaller than 30,000 square feet, and they don't want to hear it. They just literally are saying that, as far as they're concerned, we are not in compliance. On the 4th of August, they said, for full disclosure and transparency, if this is indeed a complete redesign on a different site location, Connecticut State Library informed the Town of Southington manager Mark Schoda, the library director, and myself that a complete redesign essentially renders the approved grant building plan null and void. If what you share with us is a redesign and the Town of Southington adopts it, CSL will take the next steps as previously communicated to Mr. Schoda, and basically that was that we were not going to get the grant. Is that correct, Mark? In those earlier letters?
They're not going to support the grant, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank
So-
you. Yeah.
So again, in summary, I just think that we need to withdraw the grant application, build our library, and then reapply for it after the fact.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Chris.
A couple points. First of all, I'm a little concerned because at the Monday, June 13th Town Council meeting, I brought up this very issue. This was 2 months ago. I can read right from the minutes. Mr. Palmieri noted that it was reported to some that the State Library Board is investigating our project. There was an attachment email that I submitted at that time, and we were in jeopardy of potentially losing dollar funding. Mr. Schoda responded that the question was where we were in the design process. Mr. Morelli summarized that the plan we got 2 years ago was preliminary, and it was agreed upon that we would be starting over. The comment was extremely premature. The language in the contract states that if we make a deviation of more than 10%, you have to notify them in writing as to why we did it. The same goes for if we change programming functionality by 25%. Mr. Palmieri stated he was taken aback because we weren't notified officially. Mr. Duplessis added that we are not under investigation or in jeopardy of losing funding. The grant is currently under review. Mr. Schoda stated that we have not finished the contract with the architect. Once it's done, we will send it out. And that was, again, June 13th. And now here we are at a special meeting to talk about this. And we've had months to talk about it, which is why I brought it to council back in June. We had time to plan this accordingly. I'm also troubled because, as you know, from some email exchanges, there was the agenda item under old business is to take action to allow the town manager to withdraw from the state library construction grant. We received communication from the town manager that he was able to get in touch with the state library, and similar to what I suggested in an email, that he have the meeting on September 6th, come back to the council, share information with us, rather than having us unilaterally give authority to one person rather than the 9 of us and vetting it publicly. And that's exactly what was stated by the state, and we have it, but I'll submit this to the clerk, so it's in the minutes. And finally, to the chair, I have to say I'm a little upset. You made reference in an email that Val and myself are acting in a way that's going to cost the town so much money. I don't know how we're trying to do that. What we're trying to do is point out the facts, work together. Again, this issue was brought up in June, and for you to say that I'm trying to act in a way, both of us are trying to act in a way that's
That could.
that could hurt the town is not true. So I'd like this actually entered into the minutes as well.
Sure. You can read it if you want to. Okay, very good. Anybody else have any comments?
I would just like to say that on June 13th, when you raised those concerns, our architect was not even under contract yet. We had no design. So how the state could determine that we were in violation is a mystery to me. And again, at that moment, when you asked those questions, that was the thought that we had. We didn't have a design. We thought we could get within 15%. There was never discussion about the circulation size being reduced. So the two reasons they stated that they were not going to support us were really not valid because, again, we didn't even have an architect on board. So from the very beginning, the state has not wanted to support this project, as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, thank you.
Just to,
Okay, Bob, you next.
could I just respond to that comment before we move on? Is that
Okay, but then I'm going to ask Jim to read to you. So, I mean, just so that you understand that we need,
I just wanted to keep us on topic of this special meeting. We have to really stick with the agenda. And it's just a report of a special committee. It's not a discussion and
Thank
debate
you.
about it. So you can go where you want with it, but I just want to kind of.
I would very much like to
Council
keep it
Heather.
with the agenda. And we did allow you to put your stuff in and make your statement. And Jim, if you're all right, I would like to move on the agenda.
Yes, Madam
That's
Chair,
all
I'm
right.
complete. Thank you.
So I think according to our town attorney.
And I just want
think
to point
it's
out,
important.
all I'm talking about is the library, which is the whole point of the meeting.
Well, no, the whole point of the meeting is to determine whether or not we're going to give Mark the ability to withdraw the grant. That's the purpose of the meeting, not to go back to June or February or whenever. It is specific to the authorization of the town manager to withdraw from the state library construction if he
Right, and
is-
I don't know that I agree with that, because we already
Yeah.
received the written correspondence
Yeah.
exactly to that question, which is what I was speaking about and what
Okay.
I submitted to the
Well,
record.
that's why I let that go in.
Just for clarification, if I may, just for clarification, to the chairperson of the building committee, he has stated that we didn't have an architect on hand. The comments were premature from the state library board at the time in June, and to be transparent, the library building committee has been working diligently because of the inflation costs. I'm sure everybody realizes that this is due to inflation costs. They've been working diligently to try to stay within the state grant requirements. The architect did come on, and it wasn't really until last week that we saw these final concepts, which amounted to 24,000 square feet. Now, if you do math, I think 29,000. What was the application? The application for the grant. So if you do the math, it works out to something like 25,000 square feet is 15% that you were referencing, Chris. So, you're talking, I'm sorry, 30,000 square feet minus about 4,500, right? That's about, what, 25.5? So,
Excuse me just a minute.
so-
I need to do this. Listen, if you want to be here, listen. You'll have your opportunity, but we are not going to continue with this little discussions going on while we're discussing something so vital for Southington.
right.
And so this is very serious.
So we're talking about a difference of, say, 25,500 square feet, which is within the 1,500, versus what the architect just showed us, 24,000 square feet, just last week. So, it's not as though this was a gaping hole for all this time. It's been a very, very close, the square footage has been very close to the 15% threshold. Unfortunately, it looks like it's going to be a little bit lower than that.
Okay,
And
I want to
I
go
think
on.
it's
Chair,
important
can
that that's a,
Can I,
Very quickly, Val, though.
well, why are we here then? If
We're
none of us
here
are going to
for
be able to
the
speak?
action.
I'd like to speak
Like
too,
to
Madam
speak
Chair.
on
Excuse me,
issue.
excuse me. We're here for what is on the
Well, I'm going
agenda.
to speak to what's on the agenda, but I mean,
Okay.
I think we should be speaking. all
Well,
of us.
if we get an action, if we get a motion for an action, there's discussion.
Well, don't we get to ask questions to the chair on the report?
report.
Madam Chair, this
There
is
is-
not transparency. You guys are trying to just move this fast, and we're going to lose $1 million. I served on the planning committee, and I've been sitting here quietly while you guys did your horse and pony show over there. We need to do what's best for our town. We need to start listening to our community.
Unbelievable. Jack, as you heard the head of the building committee say, that the state has already said it does not fit their standard. So there's no horse pony show. They were trying to save $1 million for Southington.
We hired an architect on the planning
Keep
committee.
Discussion to the discussion portion of the meeting, that's all that matters.
Yes, I think that's good. We're going to keep the
Under
discussion to the discussion portion of the meeting.
item 5,
Thank you,
that
Alan.
would be
Thank you,
appropriate.
Attorney Riccadone. Thank you.
attorney's report.
Town Attorney's Report. Let's go on to item number 3.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Can't even speak.
Previously discussed and quasi-debated. We had some negative feedback, a lot of negative feedback from the state of Connecticut regarding our current, where we are with our building planning phase. There is a meeting scheduled for September 6th of this year. And there was some concern that the state was going to unilaterally pull the grant award to the town of Sullyton at that meeting or before that meeting or immediately after that meeting. Then we'd want to have Mr. Shota or somebody have the authority to actually withdraw the grant application. And the reason being this, we've been told if the state of Connecticut pulls the grant application, there's a 5-year penalty under the Institute of Museum and Library Services, that's the federal entities, grant risk criteria. And that came straight from the library, the state of Connecticut library director. So if the state does pull that, they're not going to entertain another grant application from this town for 5 years. That's just for libraries. It doesn't include every other grant that we applied for. So that was my concern. We do know that the state of Connecticut did say, they gave us an assurance, I don't know if it was in writing or if it was verbal, that they'd hold off until after September 12th town council meeting to let you make a decision and talk and discuss about it. And the only concern I have, and it's up to you to decide if it's a valid concern, is if with all the negative feedback and negative commentary we've gotten from the state, and even the local, it's been in the local newspapers, should we have a belt and suspenders approach just to err on the side of caution in case the state changed their mind before the 12th? That's my only concern. It is not for me to make that decision, but it's for me to bring it to your attention and for you to debate and decide if if it is a reason to give Mr. Shota additional authority. That's my
Madam
report.
Chair, can I ask the attorney a question?
You can.
Thank you. So I spoke with the state librarian, Deborah Shander, yesterday, and asked her what is going to happen from here forward. So she indicated that on September 6th, the meeting will take place. It will be an informational meeting. It will be a chance for both sides to present different options, talk about the plan that's been submitted, talk about any redesign possibilities. And then the manager, there would be no decision that would be required at that meeting. The manager would then have the chance to come back to the council and the building committee and discuss it and have until after our September 12th meeting to be able to do probably what we're trying to do tonight. Now, I understand tonight we're here about giving authority to the manager, but I don't think there's any reason to give authority to the manager after hearing what the state librarian has said. And she said that Dawn LaValle had a long conversation with the town manager. The town manager then put that in writing to us to be assured that in writing that the state would not take that grant away September 6th, and we will have until we can have our meeting and we could have public input, we can decide. And so I'm unsure why we would vote at all on providing authority to the manager.
Madam Chair, may I ask the town attorney a question
Sure.
here? Just for clarification, Alex. In the conversations that you've had or the town manager has had with the librarian recently, has the state librarian explicitly stated that our current design will not meet the needs of the current state grant that we applied and won, and that her recommendation is that we withdraw our application and resubmit? Was that the recommendation?
So I haven't spoken to her, I'd say 2 months. I'd let Mr. Shota answer that because I don't want to speak for him.
You say the state librarian, there's a separate person. The person who's in charge of these is not the state librarian per se. They answer to the state librarian, but it's really, as you know, the in charge of it. She's the director of the library facilities, I believe. I'm not sure her exact title. But I did speak with her on 2 occasions. Yesterday was the lengthy conversation. And she was very candid. She had said she put in writing an email form to the architects. And if you were at the building committee on last Wednesday, the architects specifically went through every email they received from them. The emails are very clear from this person who simply says that your plan is insufficient to meet our recommendations and we can't support the grant. She said that to me over the phone. She was very candid with me. She said, yes, the plan, it's not much different than the one they already saw. The architect sent them the plan after a meeting of August 3rd, at a building meeting of August 3rd. They sent them the plan. The emails that you saw presented to you by the architect at the building committee were, they talked about the plan being insufficient. And at that time, they were talking about the option also. The secondary plans, which will be going up from the architect probably later this week for our meeting on Tuesday, the collection isn't an issue anymore. But it was on the 3rd, if you remember correctly. It's not an issue anymore because they redesigned to have the whole collection in there. But the square footage hasn't changed. So they were very candid.
And if we withdraw now and resubmit again, say at the beginning of next year after the designs are done and we're more comfortable with what things are going to look like, if we resubmit again next year, is it still possible that we'll get funded again? I mean, the grant opportunity is not for you. It's a town attorney's report.
Absolutely. I was told from the Valley that here that we withdraw and resubmit. She said too late to do it this year. The cutoff is the end of June, I believe, and she suggested that we resubmit in the following year.
So we're still eligible if we withdraw.
Right.
So this
So long as
withdrawing now doesn't mean that
If
we're,
the state pulls it back, we're penalized with a 5-year.
so there's no penalty for us to withdraw, regroup, and then resubmit.
Madam Chair, can I ask a quick follow-up on exactly what he just said?
Again, and
Really
then,
quick.
then Chris, I'll let you,
Chris.
let him follow.
Alex, so the penalty for a denied grant, it's only limited to the library project. It wouldn't affect any other state grants, correct?
That's correct.
I'm not so sure. I think it also affects other funding that the library gets. And my director is nodding yes. So there's other funding we get from the state that it would affect.
So
us.
the liability could be more than just $1 million. It could be other grants if we don't take action.
For the library.
Okay.
So can I just a quick
Well,
follow-up?
Chris was already had his hand up. Chris, go ahead. To the town attorney,
Well, it's actually to the town manager. because
Okay.
what he-
Mr. Chair.
What is the point of the meeting, September 6th, if you're giving us all this information now?
It's done.
I don't understand.
They've not received the most up-to-date plans, which shows that the collection is going to stay. So we're hoping that we can talk about that part of it. I'm not saying that I would never refuse a state agency who's willing to meet with us, who we can discuss a project on. I will never say no to that.
Yeah.
Am I fruitful that they're gonna come out saying great idea, but we can get some ideas from them which might help us out. But I'm not going to say no to a meeting to stay.
Right, that's my point in that for action tonight, I don't think we should take this action tonight. I think that we should allow the town manager to go, get information, then the 9 of us, rather than, one person, whether it's any one of us, one person making a decision versus 9 people discussing it publicly and making a decision. That's why, again, that was to this question. I think we should delay this, let the town manager go, and then at the town council meeting September 12th, he can give a report, update us, and then have more information, facts to base a decision upon. But right now, to your point, Mark, you should go to the state meeting, bring back information to us before we make any type of decision.
Thank you, Chris. Any other
Yes,
questions?
just
of
a- just
either
a
the
quick
town
follow-
manager or the town?
So just a quick follow-up, then. It sounds like, from what we're saying, is the plan that's being submitted for 24,000 square feet with the collection issue
Intact.
being squared away, we're presenting to the state. So it seems like that's
The architects are going to present the same plan submitted last Wednesday.
to
in
the
front of
building
us.
committee.
But to that, and by say architect, I mean by email, not in person. Architect is not invited.
Anybody else have questions for the town attorney or the town manager? All right. Let's go to public communication. We definitely want to hear from all of you. And so please come on up. Hi, John.
Evening, John Moise, 238 Stonegate Road. I'm here to ask today why we're holding this meeting. I'm listening to this conversation. I'm still dumbfounded why we're having this meeting, but there's no official decision from the state yet. We may or may not. And as I just heard Mr. Shota just say, we go bring it to them and maybe there's something that we're missing or they're missing. We don't know that until that happens. So I believe there's multiple issues going on here. Okay, and I'll stick to the $1 million. I believe we are all getting hung up on this $1 million, the grant, when we should be thinking about how to keep the library to 30,000 square feet. I have listed and heard the dialogue about the referendum said when residents voted to approve the project with 6,896 yes votes and 4,922 no votes on November 2nd, 2021. The yes vote signs were all over this town. There was not one no vote in this town. They're all over town, and literature was advertised in local papers and all over Facebook. This gives one chance to review the origins of this referendum project from the beginning, including the $1 million. This project was designed for the future of Southington in the next 50 years, not 10, not 15, 20, 50 years. And it would expand space for children and teens, create more room for meetings and workshops for individuals and groups, have multiple program spaces for simultaneous events, larger friends of the library bookstore, amongst the many other items advertised for the $16.9 million, including the $1 million. Let's talk about cost. And I quote, this is from, and I'm going to hand this in a minute. This is from the yes vote group, the leaders of town. Quote, a professional cost estimate was taking into consideration the construction start date and the impact of the pandemic. It was also the caveat the library will be applying for the up to $1 million grant to cover some of the costs of the 60, not extra, but including the 60. I want to make sure we're clear about that, including it. There would be fundraising from the library board and friends of the library that may contribute to additional funding. I don't know of any that have been done or is planned to be done. Maybe there is, but that's another avenue to look at. The town has a financial situation, and yet no one, and I said this the other night, no one has talked or asked the Board of Finance to review the finances of this and look at alternatives to keep this 30,000 square feet. I worked with the Board of Finance. I was on that for many years with John, Joe, Ed, and Kevin. They are bright people who know how to deal with financial problems. I would ask that you guys at least get them included in the conversation. I think that would be a big help. I think we're missing a big cog in the wheel by not bringing the Board of Finance into this discussion. I don't think this would be wise to lose the $1 million without the input of the Board of Finance. I think myself, I can go into this other stuff, but I want to talk about inflation for a minute. I talked about this the other night. Inflation is up and it's coming down. I put the numbers in the records for steel, oil, copper, wood, the whole bit. So May was a high point and it came down. The feds are taking care of that. Look at the gas prices. A month ago it was $5 a gallon. Today, $3.55. My point is it goes up and down. So maybe a pause is appropriate, to keep, even if you don't do the $1 million, because I don't think you're going to still have enough to cover the 16 million with the 24,000 square feet. So that's the one option. The other option is to go back to get the excess cost, go back to referendum. You're not losing the 16.9 million, but you're just adding, saying we need 3 million, 2 million, whatever it may be. Let the voters decide. Over 10,000 people already decided one way or the other on this. Why not? It's not about raising taxes. It's about giving the people the choice to go. And it doesn't have to be November 8th. It could be December, January, just like the golf course referendum day. Lastly, I'll just say this last thing. Mr. Riccio had an idea on the building committee, that has merit to build a standalone building and attach to the library, thereby ensuring there's plenty of space. This must be researched, as it may not be legal because the referendum states that the demolition of the existing building is part of the bond ordinance. So I appreciate your time. I know this is not easy, believe me, and you're dealing with the state. And I do think that listening to this conversation, that the town manager should go there and bring this back and then the decision be made and not beforehand.
Thank
I'm going to
you.
hand these in for the record.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm George. 90 Applegate, Unit 141, Southington, Connecticut. I'm going to talk frank. I'm a taxpayer. We pay the taxes in the town council. You work for us. We don't work for you. Number one, you have a project here that holds no water. They're like a ship out at sea without a bottom in it. You don't have a project. You don't have anything. You don't have any plans. Nothing at all. Your credibility to put this forward to the taxpayers, you don't have any credibility to it. We had a project. We had money for it. But it's gone. It's really gone. To look at the taxpayers and say, we're going to go ahead and do something, you'd embarrass yourselves. You'd embarrass all of us. That's the facts. Now let's look at this. Mr. Moisey, if you look at the price of oil, it's going right back up again, and it's probably going to go up to $180 a barrel. On top of that, look at the interest rates shooting up again, and tomorrow they're going to shoot up again. Price of food and everything else has gone up. Inflation is coming right back again. You can bet your butt on that. We're going to be in cost control, and I've been saying it to this town council since springtime. Unemployment's going to go up. It's going to be a miserable life in this country. By springtime of next year, you can bet your butt on that. But I say to the town council tonight, look at the taxpayers, say, we work for you. We're going to do the right thing. We're going to do what's best for us and our credibility. We're not going to go forward with something we have nothing. We have no plan. We don't know what we're going to do. That's the facts. You got a ship out there, but you got no ship at all. You haven't even drawn up a plan for anything yet. You don't know whether it's 20,000, 22, 23, 24. You don't know what it is. There's so much out there that is unknown. Really. You don't know what the state's going to do. There's elections coming up. The librarian may be out of a job in November. Or the new governor might come about. We don't know what's going to happen. That's all I got to say.
Thank you.
If I have to write letters to the editor and get them published, I'm gonna.
Yeah. George, I just want to say that there are plans. There have been meeting very carefully. The plan going forward, the people voted at a referendum for 16.9 that passed. So I know that because I appreciate your comments, though. Thank you, George.
We have solid plans for a library. I mean, that we sold the voters one plan. That's not the same anymore,
Right.
Mrs. Triano.
Right, that's
Mrs.
correct.
Triano.
That's correct.
Excuse me. And that's what we sold them. We got to give them a chance to vote on something else.
Thank you.
Margaret Lewis, 391 Bellevue Avenue. I've written to you recently, so you know that I'm not in favor of sending $17 million to build too small a library. It's barely adequate for present needs and woefully inadequate for future needs. I found what I thought was the present Plan B, maybe it's been superseded, and it to be misleading in its assumption that some spaces could be used for both stacks and programming. Since stacks need to be open and accessible whenever the library is open to the public, they need to be permanently placed. Programming space can be flexibly used so long as there is sufficient staff to disassemble and reassemble according to the different programming requirements. I hadn't known, and I'm not sure I still know, why the State Library Board is withdrawing or suggesting that we withdraw our $1 million grant, but I have to assume that it was because they felt it unwise to invest in a library project that from the outset is inadequate for a community of our size. So my request tonight is that you slow down the process and explore one more alternative. Initially, there were two plans considered, one to expand and renovate the existing library or to build a new one. At the time, the two options were estimated to cost about the same, as I recall, so that the new library option seemed appropriate. And that's the referendum we voted for, a new library of 30,000 square feet. Now, we cannot build that size library due to the increased cost of materials, among others. So, One alternative is to conduct a second referendum to approve the additional money required to build the original right-sized library. And I think there's another option, and that's to reconsider the first option, the option of expanding and renovating as much as possible the existing library. There's cleared and available space behind the library for an addition. The addition would require some new materials, which are expensive, but much of the material of the existing library would not need to be trashed in this case or replaced. They would significantly reduce new material costs. And there would be some disruption to the library services during the expansion, but we've already lived through COVID disruptions and staff have learned how to be creatively of service. So I'm asking that you please reconsider adding an addition and expanding the current library to 30,000 feet. Assign that task to the architects, hopefully one of the two already known, and then price it. If we're going to spend 17 million or more on a new and or expanded library, let us be sure that the building will be adequate for the long term. It's the prudent and fiscally responsible thing to do. Therefore, I think relative to tonight's agenda, again, let's slow down. I think it's far too soon for anyone to go back to the library board to try to renegotiate until we have a plan to provide for a library which is of a size appropriate to the needs of our growing community. Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret, very much.
You need this for the record.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hello, I'm Nancy Rogers, 230 Long Bottom Road. I'd just like to add my voice to those who feel strongly that our investment in this valuable property that we have here in our library be made with a long view in mind and not be compromised or short-sighted. Just because we happened to hold a referendum without knowing what the future was going to be with regard to increased costs. Of course, none of us can predict the future, but let's not confuse our unlucky timing with the mandate to do something no matter what. In my opinion, it is not fiscally responsible to renovate the library only to get to a point where it will become obsolete in 5, 10, 15 years. When I heard that the State Library Board was saying that we no longer met the criteria for the library grant, I took that to mean that we were not making a good investment in our own future and that we would be wasting money when it would be more prudent to reassess, reapply for a larger grant, and return to the original plan to build something that we can proudly say will accommodate our lively communities and our thoughtful growing library collection. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good evening, Katie Wade, 39 Madeline. So this isn't where any of us wanted to be, and through the fault of no one in this room, you're all in sort of unenviable position on this issue. I don't view this as a fight. The view I take, the one I'm asking you to share, is that of a town working together to solve a problem that we find ourselves in. I think everyone is working with the same intention on this. If it is necessary to withdraw from the state construction grant, while unfortunate, it also means you're not beholden to the state's timeline, which gives you the opportunity to bring people together and find solutions. You might be able to come up with something that gets us closer to the vision that the town voted for. Either way, it is not wasted effort to try. Prior to the referendum to build the new library, the chairman of the Board of Finance, John Leary, made a video where he explained the way our town takes on debt and how the library fits into the long-range financial plan for the town. He also said, and I'm quoting, "We want things done for the long term and things done right. One of the things we want to do is make sure that when we do build something, we build it with quality and we build it over time the proper way." I agree. And I'd like to hear from the Board of Finance again, now that the landscape has changed. I live here. I'm not looking for you to come up with solutions that drive my taxes really high, but I'd rather not see $16.9 million of taxpayer money used to build a library that is barely larger than the one we have now, and it's just too small for our growing town, not without exploring every avenue. We have heard a lot about what happened during the construction of the last library building. The history was checked, and I'm sure some future generation of Southington residents will read the history of this endeavor. You have the opportunity to make it a good read, one where a community came together and solved a problem. This is what you will leave to the town of Southington. I thank you for your attention. Good luck.
Thank you, Kate, very much. Anyone else?
Anne Marie Connedy, 1237 Mount Vernon. I wasn't going to speak, but after hearing everyone, I was a no voter because I thought at the time this referendum was getting put through, it was the wrong time. We were rushing it through COVID, when we have a aging population, when everyone was struggling. And the fact that nobody thought costs were going to rise is like, I just can't believe it. I'm married to a union carpenter of 32 years. And to hear John Moy say inflation is going to come down, I have to agree with George. It's going to come down until the election, and then it's going to go right back up. Food lines are growing. The elderly are struggling. Price of heating is going to skyrocket when it's time. Yeah, they brought our gas prices down, but they're going to go up too again. They brought them up when everybody was traveling. It's price gouging. As much as the government doesn't want to say that it is, it is. I think we put a referendum through before anyone was ready to put a referendum through. $17 million of taxpayer money is a lot of money. Everything I've heard, everything I'm reading, I don't think we want to just rush to spend $17 million. If you have to give $1 million back to the state, so be it. Then you can ask the library director to come back with a real plan. What kind of programs does she want? What kind of equipment is she going to need? You can't build just a building and then say we want these programs, this equipment, because then you could conceivably have a building that won't fit what you really want. So don't you think you need a real program first of what kind of materials, what kind of equipment, what kind of programs are you going to be able to share spaces with different programs before you can build a building? Or you might have a 30,000 square foot building, but it still won't be servicing the needs of the community. And if you want to go back to the people later on and ask for more money, no, you didn't see any no votes, but a lot of you people know I'm a very passionate person. I'll put no signs up. And I'll get a lot of people behind me to not spend a lot more money because I care about the aging population of this town. I care about the people that can't buy their groceries, that have to decide on whether or not they have to give their medicine up to heat their homes. I care about those people. And I'm not going to watch $17 million thrown out the window because we're going to rush something. I think it's time. And I'm tired of reading it. We're Southington, Connecticut. We should be proud of this community. I'm tired of reading all of the innuendos in the newspaper. Let's just get together on the same page, sit at a table, and work together to do something right for this town once, instead of giving the reporters all this nonsense to report about. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Emery. Anyone else?
Hello, good evening. My name is Nathan Wright. I live at 1070 Marion Avenue in Plantsville, Connecticut. Just a couple observations I made. One, and then maybe I misheard things, but it sounded like, I believe it was when the town attorney was speaking about the grant, or perhaps it was the town manager, that some of the feedback that they received was that given the stage where we're at with our planning process and the changing of the architects and the changing of the design and the changing of the square footage, that we're really at the position now that most places are when they are applying for grants, which made me wonder, like, why did we rush that application? Did we submit that application prematurely, or did we think at the time that those were going to be our architects and that was going to be our square footage? Again, like, I've got limited experience with contracts and very little with construction apart from building a patio in my backyard, or maybe getting a fence, hopefully at some point when prices come down. But I do know that, like, when you're signing terms and contracts, like, in general, like, people hold you to them. So when there are clauses about not being able to drop below a certain square footage, that's because the people that want to give us $1 million are saying, like, this is what we want you to do, and this is what we don't want you to do. So it seems, a little bit shocking that it would be a surprise that that the library board, the state board, would be against this modification. I've heard a lot of people speak over the last like 2 or 3 weeks at the library building committee, at the library committee, at town council meetings. I've read like a lot of Facebook posts and comments on Facebook posts on both Southington Talks and Southington Talks Freely, and probably Southington Talks 2.0 and Positively Southington and every Southington group that's out there. And what I see is there are a lot of people that are saying $16.9 million was too much to begin with. Like, we shouldn't be building anything. And there are a lot of people that are saying, we need the 30,000, square feet. We should be taking a pause and regrouping and seeing about getting, additional funding. But what I haven't seen, and maybe I haven't just looked, hard enough yet, is I haven't seen anyone saying, $16.9 million is what we have. Let's build a 24,000, square foot building. I've heard that only, directly, from the architects and from some of the folks and some of those committees. But my reminder is that, there was the sentiment expressed that the public officials work for us, the taxpayers. And I think people, agree with that in general. And the architects, work for you guys. So they're the ones that I'm hearing saying, we need to build, this building. I'm not hearing anyone from the town saying this compromise, this is the best that we can do. Like, let's all get behind that. So until we have that buy-in, I really think it's prudent to kind of take a step back and pause and really, get more input from the town and make a decision. Like, do we want to all kick in more money to build what it is that we hope will be the library of the future, or do we want to not build, as that sentiment is there again? Because again, I'm not hearing, yay, like 24,000 square feet, like $17 million, even though it looks pretty and it would be an upgrade. It's an expensive upgrade for what we're actually, getting. Thank you very much for your time, and good luck with your
Thank you, Nick.
decisions.
Thank you.
My name is Jackie Willamets, and I live on Hobart Street in Southington. And hello to everyone. And I didn't even plan on being here. I was out in my yard, and I looked at my phone, and I went to the Facebook page. I don't know which one it was because I'm terrible on Facebook, but it said that there was an emergency meeting here, and it was on an official town site thing. So it's at 6 o'clock. And I got here late, and I have no prepared statement, but I've listened to everybody, and I've lived here since 1982. I've had a relationship with this town pretty much most of my life because I have relatives here, and I love this town, and I care about all of you, even though I send you nasty emails sometimes, and we misunderstand one another. You know me. You all know me, and I care about this town. But I'm also a League of Women Voters person, so I try to be nonpartisan sometimes, and I believe in referendum because that's the only way I, as a voter, have a voice. That's the first thing. So people that are not into referendums, I don't know. I'm disappointed because that's us. That's the democracy, us voting. So there was a referendum and people came out. I came out and I voted yes because my kids utilized that library the whole time they were in school. They were tutored at that library. I used to see all the kids, the latchkey kids from the middle school, and the young high schoolers that couldn't drive yet, they were over there all the time. It's utilized. It's always been utilized. And some of you youngins here, I mean, I remember you guys there when you were young utilizing it. So we need to we got to figure this out. And I don't understand why you had this emergency meeting. I really think that you guys got to not politicize it at all and come back to the center of who we are as a community, okay? And just block out all the silos and the noise and the politics and look at all these people, okay? And make a decision considering everyone's opinion. And my opinion as a senior is that not all seniors in this town are hard up, okay? Yes, I'm a volunteer. I know the seniors that need us and need our help and have trouble paying their taxes and need help with that. And I know some seniors that don't pay their taxes anymore. So when they pass, everything they had is gone. But I'm not one of those seniors. And if my taxes have to go up $5 more a year until I pass and I'm 70, so be it. So just keep that in mind, that it's a hypocrisy to come up here and say, and I'm not talking personally about anybody, but we can't be hypocrites anymore. We have to be honest with each other. And that's what's missing about all the dialogues lately. And that's all I have to say. God bless all of you. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Jackie. This is why we're having this meeting, to give everyone an opportunity to speak. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak tonight? And she.
Hi, Effie Mutajanas, 53 Rustic Oak Drive. Just really quickly, I didn't plan on speaking either, but is that better?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So from the start of the discussions for the library, I mean, I look back in minutes, like going back years and years. So this has been on the table for 12, 15 years or something, to build a better library, bigger library to accommodate the growing town and the growing needs and technological advances and all that stuff. So when the referendum came forth, every piece of literature was saying the size of the library that was on there. Every survey result that I saw said, what's the most important thing for people? And said, this is the library. So I don't understand why we're going like guns a-blazing here, like we're under the gun to put forth a plan and get it through, and 24,000 square feet, and let's go. This has been discussed back and forth for, it seems like, over a decade. So slow down. Let's see what happens. I needed a fence last year. It was too expensive. Supplies were low. I waited and the prices went down. And we didn't demolish our old fence until we could arrange for the new fence. So let's slow down. We can put it to referendum and see if it's valuable enough for people to want to kick in some more towards the project. Consult with the Board of Finance. I mean, they allocated the ARPA money with no issues, so I'm sure they maybe have some bright ideas for us to get this library done. But I think everyone just needs to take a beat and figure out how to proceed for this project that the whole town is going to use. And honestly, when I moved here, I thought there was another library somewhere, maybe in town, not this one, because every town I lived in had a huge library with old people, young people, people in the middle, using it all day for whatever, hanging out, reading a book, reading a newspaper, using the computer. And I literally thought maybe there was another library that I wasn't aware of. So I would really like to see that come to fruition, because it seems like there have been a lot of people in this town working really hard to get this done. And we're in a crap position right now because of the way that things are going. But, it's been over a decade already. So let's just slow down, work together, and get it done. Thank you.
We have a member of the Board of Finance here. Two. Oh, I'm sorry. Two.
No, three.
Oh, a bunch of them. I think we're always ready to hear.
Yeah.
Tony, you're going to come up.
Just a couple of things. I'm not here from the Board of Finance, by the way. By the way, Tony Morrison, 49 Blotcher Farm Place. I'm here as a taxpayer and a voter. And I wanted to hear, the report on the Library Building Committee, because I'm interested. Big proponent of the library, I was, still am. Just wanted to make one point, though. I think there's been some fiscal issues have come up here that I think are incorrect. And it's not what we've been faced with. What we've been faced with is, right now, is inflation, as well as a recession that's also going to get worse as the Federal Reserve does their stuff. But inflation is not going away, all right? It's going to be worse next year, and it's going to continue. And the reason is that we have decided to print $3.5 trillion of money that we don't have. And when you print money and you don't have productivity on the workforce, you get inflation. It's economics 101. It's always happened. It always will happen. It will happen this time. And the only way to get out of it is by having, you can let it go, run for 10 years, or you can do what the Federal Reserve is doing, which is raising interest rates in order to deliberately depress the economy, depress the money we have available in order to crush it so prices come down. And that's what's happening right now. It's happening right now. It's not like this is, it may not happen in the future. It's going to. So the reason I bring this up is to say, and this, again, is me, Board of Finance will opine on this in the fullness of time, and I'm grateful for, people who have trust in us. But if you delay this too much, okay, you will go into next year and the year after, and you'll say, well, referendum, we need more money. There's not going to be an appetite for that when you have inflation, serious inflation. And by the way, after the Fed does its business, 2 years, 3 years, prices don't come down. The inflation rate comes down, okay? So after the last recession, 2008, the inflation rate was 5%. It was a disaster. It came down to 2%. That's what they did in that 2-year period, okay? We're at, 8.5% now, inflation, and we'll bring it down. They'll bring it down. But there will be a lot of pain, So there won't be appetite for people to go back to referendum and say, we need more money here, okay? Because we've already allocated, 16.9 million. It's already there. It's already baked into the town finances. And I suggest that we proceed ahead with that. And again, not with undue caution, okay? The issue of the $1 million, is it 1 million? Because as far as I know, we have to build this with gold lead, which we obviously can't afford. It's a building spec that the state asked for. And that gives 200, 300 grand off the $1 million, because they won't give us the whole amount. And then there's, fees and things that they need to look at stuff. And that'll take off another couple of hundred. So we're not looking at $1 million. We are looking at a sum of money. But that sum of money, that sum of money can be replaced. I wouldn't want to on the Board of Finance, but we have assets, okay? We have, above and beyond our minimum reserves of 18 million bucks, we have 5 million from the town. We have 2.3 million in the schools. And we have a building plan that we've done over the last year or so. Thank you, Mr. Town Manager. We have eliminated a lot of the need to build stuff in the next several years. So we can move money around, allocate it back and forth, and, and we can make this stuff up. Okay, we haven't even addressed those yet. So all I'm saying is don't slow the project down to infinity, cautiously, but proceed ahead with it, okay? Proceed ahead with it, and and we will fund it. Okay, it's already baked into the finances. I think Anne-Marie brought up. Brought up about John Leary's presentation on it. It's there. It's in our debt service. We know it's going to happen. Okay? That's
Thank
what I
you
wanted to
very
say.
much, Tony.
Thank you.
Kevin, would you like to come? I want to make sure you have opportunity if you would like to address this issue. Kevin Bedoin, of course, is on the Finance Board, and Mr. Pocock is in the back end. So I think
1140 Pleasant Street. I agree with a lot of Tony saying. I feel that we have inflation right now. I think the Federal Reserve is aggressively attacking it. So, like Tony says, as they raise rates, demand goes down, and supply will go up. That will help the supply chain. So I think the prices will come down. And when we say a pause, I don't think this project starts for 6-7 months. Prices could be a lot different. Like Paul mentioned, to qualify for that loan, do we need 25-something thousand square feet? Right? You said, is that kind of true? That's first I heard. So are we close? Are we able to get better prices and build like a 26,000 square foot library as opposed to 24? And therefore we can get the grant. I mean, we haven't talked about it on the Board of Finance yet. I think that's a topic we should discuss.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, we might have, the rainy day fund, we might have some funds available where we can spread over a 2-year period because it's going to take a couple years to build the building. So we may be able to get enough funding outside of, with the loan from the state to get a 27,000 square feet. Would make everybody happy. It may not be 30, but if it's 27, is that doable? And we can get the grant, and it might be, that's my thought. And that would be a discussion we would have with the Board of Finance.
Kevin, I appreciate that very much, and I appreciate Tony. Ed, is there something you'd like to say? I know, they really went on, I know. Sometimes my eyes glass over when they're talking to me, but I think all of you have made a very good point. Thank you from the Board of Finance, to the Board of Finance, rather. Is there someone else who would like to speak tonight? Hang on, George, we have somebody coming up.
I wasn't going to speak either. Regina Calviello, 12 Beecher Street. Very simple. Bottom line, you had us vote. We voted on a certain thing. If that changes, it should go back to us so we can vote. Whether it's the 48, whatever it is, we should have that right. It was our vote. For anyone else to change that, it's up to us. If we want to accept what you have, fine. But we should have that vote. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? George, George, can you just, you already spoke, George, and are you okay? Okay, would you come quickly then?
How much time does he have left, do you know?
A minute.
Added into the big picture is all the other big expenditures that we have coming up. One of which is going to be the fields up at the high school, which is going to be probably over $15 million, as well as the roads, the sewers, all the other long-term expenditures that are of a must nature in this town that have to be done because they're old and old. So there are a lot of other things that have to be done as well, too. I just don't look at the library. I look at everything in this town that has to be done. And I feel that has to be taken into account as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. All right, last call for anyone who hasn't spoken before. We're going to close public communication. I want to thank all of you for your input. It's all very important. Everyone here was listening, and we take our role extremely seriously in this town. We may disagree sometimes the next steps, but we still take it very seriously. So, are we ready, everybody? So let's proceed. Old business action on the authorization to the town manager to withdraw from the state library construction grant.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Paul?
I know everybody wants to get on with discussion on this, so we got a lot of things to talk about. So what I'd like to do is start us off. First by saying thank you to everybody who came out. I think, there's a lot of great suggestions. A lot of these things are very valid, and I think that's, a lot of them are the direction I think we're heading in. What resonated to me, for me, Margaret Lewis talked about slowing down the process and evaluating alternatives. Ms. Nancy Rogers, long view, we have to keep these things in mind. Kate Wade, you also said very similar things. Jackie mentioned not politicizing this. A lot of these things are what I would consider, some of the foundational premises for why we need to move forward with this. You couple that with, we've had discussions about Kevin and John Leary about, should the Board of Finance have some input on this? These are all things that can happen along the way. And then couple that with the fact that we have a state library board set of leaders who have given us a deadline. They drew a line in the sand and said, we need you to meet with us September 6th. And they asked us to come to a meeting, present our most recent plan, and only after much debate about that meeting did we got some agreement that they would allow us to review the outcome of that meeting and discuss it at our next town council meeting, but not much more beyond that. I don't think that there is, and there's something to be said about ensuring that we're working collaboratively with the state boards, including the library board. We've received multiple correspondences recently suggesting from the leaders of the library board to do a reset. That's not a bad thing. We shouldn't be penalized for it. It doesn't mean that anybody did anything wrong. There's so many factors that are going on out there that, we have to put a pause button here. Like Tony said, can't be putting a pause on forever. But like many others said, let's explore some other options and ensure we're doing what's right for the residents in the town and maximizing the benefit here. So maintaining that relationship is really important for me. Ensuring that we have time to reassess, and I don't think based on the library leaders' comments that they've given us this deadline and not much longer past the September 6th until the 12th. I don't think anything is going to materially change in our plans between now and then. But I do think we can take some time after that. Once we get through this state library board meeting, we have a chance to then pause, and then we have a chance to reflect and figure out what our next steps are. And I think that we're going to have to pursue multiple avenues. So I think that I'm going to make a motion, and then we can have some discussion on this. I'm going to make a motion to immediately authorize the Southington Town Manager, for all the mentioned reasons, authorize the town manager with the ability to withdraw our library building grant, and suggest that such a withdrawal be due and contingent of to not meeting the grant requirements or similar reasons, and that we do it immediately at the conclusion of the September 6th design review meeting. To review the September 6th design review meeting with the state Connecticut librarian or the other officials that are part of that process, and prior, of course, to any formal decision that the state library team members might make that might jeopardize us in the grant process. So that's going to be my motion, Madam Chair.
I'll second, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, can I ask a really quick question, procedural question to probably help the debate?
Okay.
Is that all right?
Yes.
So to the town attorney, I should have asked this earlier. So do we have a date by which if we do not withdraw our application, it is essentially denied with prejudice? Is it the 6th? Is there a date?
I'm going to let Mr. Schroeder.
Who's ever in that meeting, we should do other testing that withdraw, or excuse me, we really forfeit is the analogy we have to use. They're suggesting that. Do I foresee something's going to happen on the 6th? I don't know. The cards are against it, but you never know. So in this particular case, it would be them explaining to us that you can go down here and bang your head against the wall, but it's really up to us to make that decision. And if the grant's not going to be supported, then that decision would have to be made. Obviously, it's a policy decision, not a decision made.
And to clarify my motion is contingent upon that discussion occurring and the library board giving feedback that our plan does not meet the standards and that they continue to recommend. Yeah.
Madam Chair, can I just ask a couple
Sal.
questions?
Sure.
So to the town manager or to the town attorney, does the state ever give extensions on the grant process?
I did not discuss that with the person I spoke with.
I mean, is that an option if on September 6th? Because it's to me that if we're right now, the understanding is we're going in there on September 6th because the state is basing it on the plan that is in front of them, and that's a 24,000 square foot plan, correct? Is that the plan that's been submitted to the state?
The plan that we submit to the state is the same one that was submitted on the
Last
3rd, except for the small modifications where the
So the state is going to basically state, this is substantially different from the plan for the 29.
I think the state is saying exactly what you're saying. They're saying
It's substantially
they're saying
different.
voluntarily forfeit and then reapply after you know what you're going to do. That's what they're saying.
But will they give dates on that? I thought they typically give an extension, because then we're listening to our residents and want to try to come up with different options. Can you talk about some of those different options on September 6th?
That's what one of their emails that was presented on Wednesday says. It says that if you voluntarily withdraw, come up with a new design and a new process, you can reapply. That's what their point was.
So-
They said it in writing not to me, to the architects. Architects submitted that in writing, where they actually said that if you wish, you voluntarily forfeit, and then assuming the town wants to do something else, the town wants to go forward with its current plan, by all means, that's our right to do.
Right.
If the town chooses to do something else, then we would then take whatever we decide, then we would submit that as a new grant.
Back to the state. So it's still, and I understand that we may end up forfeiting the state grant, and that's fine, because we might be able to do something else that's thinking outside the box. But I think for me, I would rather make that decision on September 12th after we're guessing right now. I know there's good information there, and they have kind of down this path, but I still would like to hear what happens at the meeting, and then on September 12th, we at that point we vote whether we're at least we're doing it, all of us, and together collaboratively, and it's only another week and a half out.
Okay. Chris?
Just to take that a little bit further, I agree completely. There were two questions that I really wanted to ask, and I want to thank the town attorney in the emails he had just reach out to him. I did call and I did speak to him, and one of the questions on our phone conversation was, where is it in writing that the town is telling us we have to have a decision by September 6th? He got back to us, and then I think that's where Mark got involved, spoke to someone at the state level. So I want to thank you both for doing it yesterday. But your response back, Mark, was that we don't need an answer by September 6th. So back to the original questions. What is the exact that the town of Southington is facing? Because I still don't know what those deadlines are. And have we considered asking for an extension? Because we've talked about going back for referendum again. It's happened to us with other projects in the town when costs exceeded what we predicted. So those are the two questions that I'd really like answered.
The first one, obviously, you received the letter from the state, who simply said they expect from me by either myself or this board by no later than after the meeting of the 12th.
After our meeting of the 12th. Okay.
You have that letter.
Okay.
I sent it to all of you.
Right, and that was in the email that I submitted. How, and have we spoken to the state, and maybe in writing, about an extension? Like asking for an extension?
I did not speak with anyone from the state on the extension. What I explained is the same thing I just explained to Val, is the way I read the emails that were given to the architects is that the procedure they wish for us to follow is if we wish to go forward with the current plan we have or something different, but not the quote unquote as part of the application, then they're asking us to voluntarily forfeit and then reapply once we know what we're going to do. That was very clear in the emails that we have. So,
and then for town attorney, a couple questions from the audience, or suggestions from the audience. If we were to pursue expanding the current library, it can meet the square foot that we promised. From a town perspective, is that in violation of the referendum because there would be no demolition cost?
That'd be correct because the referendum specifically allocates part of those funds, not a specific dollar amount, but allocates part of the funds for demolition.
So it would be,
It'd be in
so
violation.
that isn't a possibility.
Correct.
From a town perspective.
If I may, Madam Chair, Chris, if it's okay, those are the things that we should explore. You know, we have to get through this step. Those are really good things. We talked a little bit about that. You know, for example, you could possibly, if the if the decision was to make the existing library part of the build out somehow, you could probably go back to a referendum and ask to eliminate the demolition clause, right? And then if you can find out that you could build it to an adequate size. So there's options that we need to kind of work through on this.
And that's, I think we're sort of saying the same thing. I guess our point is we're need to make a decision, releasing authority from 9 members publicly, 1 member marked through your position, to 1 member that can act without really unilaterally. And that's, I think, the concern. So Paul, you're right. That's why the original suggestion is, why don't we put the brakes on, wait until we have this meeting with the state, talk to them about what if we go back to referendum, what if we do some of these things, and then make an informed decision. We get information to back up questions that we're asking.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to touch on the main issue. There was a lot of good discussion this evening, both from the dais and from the public. But the question before us this evening is very simple. And I think we don't need to look at it as if we do this, then we can't do that. We're just authorizing the town manager to possibly act on September 6th. We're not saying that he must act on September 6th. So I trust the judgment of the town manager to go to the meeting on September 6th and get approval from us. The individual at the state was quoted in the newspaper recommending that we withdraw. So I hope that for the interest of Southington, that we're all on the same page, that we should withdraw, take a step back, reevaluate, and then move forward with a focused plan, which we'll have more discussions about. But just because we're authorizing the town manager to maybe act if needed on September 6th doesn't mean that he will, and he may take that information and bring it back to the council on September 12th. So I don't think it's if we do that, then we must do this.
But just one thing, Tom, you just said if needed. We already know it's not needed because we have it in writing. It's not needed.
Right.
That's the point. It's not needed.
So there will
But
be
if
no
the
harm by
decision-
giving him the authorization.
But if the decision at the end of that meeting is that the recommendation still stands to withdraw, then that's what we're saying. Withdraw. There's no sense in making the state library wait any longer, another week or two, for us to discuss something that's not going to change. You know, we should honor the state library's multiple requests that they've asked us to withdraw and then take a pause and resubmit. That's all I'm saying is, you know, trying to also be kind to the state library people who continue to tell us this is the path we want you to take.
I'm sorry, just one more thing. And I guess my response to that is, I get it, and I get there's a respect for the state library, but we answer to our residents. We don't answer to the state library board. And I would rather act after having facts to make a decision in front of our residents rather than on the whim of the state library board.
I could just say something, please, Val. Let me just cover. Prior to this meeting, I spoke with Jim Morelli, and I said to him, how many times has the state told us to withdraw our application? I mean, at least 5 or 6 times, I think, Jim. I don't know exactly. And then just recently this week, the state again tells Mark unequivocally to withdraw the request. I think that it's very clear where it's headed. We're not trying to, do you think 2 weeks is going to change that? Absolutely not. I feel very strongly, let's be active. I think some of the folks that spoke tonight were wonderful and that brought up ideas and the whole idea of slowing down, the whole idea of let's get together on this thing. I love that. And I don't believe anybody wants this to be political. Like, gosh, I certainly hope not. It's not. I know it's not from my heart and from the heart of the guys that I serve with. But I think we need to take action. I mean, not to give him that power for the 6th in case he needs it, to me, is very short-sighted, since they have told us and told us and told us. It's like having a blank check in your pocket when you need to cash it. It's in your back pocket, and you have it if you need it. So, anybody else? I want to open it up to the yes, Jack. Oh, I'm sorry, Val. Jack, you haven't spoken. Yeah, please. Yeah.
So, again, I've spoke to a lot of residents. I've been to a lot of these meetings. I was part of the planning committee. And during the planning committee process, we did a design, and it was in the needs of the community. There's a lot of input from the community. And we went for the state grant because we realized the requirements the state has kind of is what our community needs. So we're now rushing to withdraw from the grant, which means we're going backwards. I think this needs to be paused. I think we need to interact more with our constituents. We need to listen to our community and do the right thing. And if there's no deadline, then I don't know having a special meeting that has less turnout from the residents because, again, it's last minute. So if we really want to do what's best for the town, we should slow this down, not start withdrawing from things, because the residents understood the state had some skin in the game here. Now you're saying the state's not gonna, and I'm concerned that this is gonna continue. Where does this end? Do we end up with an 18,000 square foot new library because now we're not following any guidelines? Or then we're going to blame the building committee? That's what they did, because it's not going to come back to the council. We're not going to decide on the exact footage of this library. I just think that, again, the state is holding us accountable to make sure we're doing the best for our community. So if we're going to say that we're pulling from the grant, again, it needs to go further than that. We need to talk to our community and have interactions with them, and a special meeting is not the right way. Again, I want what's best for our community. I served on the planning committee, and we planned all this, and except for obviously COVID and all the inflation. And we were originally charged to do a library for $13 million, and this was pre-COVID. We couldn't do a $13 million library. We tried. We had to pay the architect, draw something up, and it was small, and it didn't meet any of our needs. So then we went back, and originally it was $22 million with our needs, and then we realized we need to figure out needs and wants and to do what's best for our community. And what I really learned over this whole process is the library is not books; it's a community center. I went to the library, in my teacher years, they were computers. Now there's way more than just computers at a library. It's a community center. It's a hub of the community. So again, I think we need to slow down before we just start acting. There's not a deadline of when we have to pull this grant. And if there is a deadline that we know of, then we could ask for an extension. But just giving Mark authority, and then again, I don't want to see in 6 months, well, Mark's the one that pulled the plug. Well, Mark's going to do what he thinks is.
We just had the town manager tell us there is a deadline, September 12th, and we were also told that there is a process that they want us to follow. That's withdraw, not for an
September
extension.
12th, I thought was our meeting.
No, September 6th meeting, Jack.
Hold on.
No, our council, our next
There's
council.
a letter that says that we're meeting on the 6th. They understand that we don't have a council meeting to the 12th, and the letter specifically says they want to hear from us on this issue after that meeting.
After the council meeting?
Yeah, we have to make a decision on the 12th if we don't make it now. Nothing's going to change between the 12th and the 6th, Jack. That's what we're saying.
But
It's 6
again,
days.
giving more opportunity for the public to come out and give their feedback, I think.
We're still going to have that, Jack, at the next. We're still going to have public communications. We can have a discussion about what the
point in
future
time,
is.
Mark may have already acted.
He's only acting if he needs to. If he gets.
But you're just saying that on the 12th is when we're going to do it.
No, what we said was, if at the 6th the state still says that their recommendation is for us to withdraw and reapply at a later date, then he will do that on the 6th. If something else comes up and Mark sees a better path between the 6th and 12th to do something different, then
The state says they want our feedback after the 12th, then why are we giving Mark authority to one person instead of a council of 9?
The Council of 9 is here now discussing that, Jack.
Yeah, so you want to give it to one person, and I'm against that.
No, we're voting on it right now, Jack.
Voting on withdrawing or just giving him discretion?
We're giving him We're giving him the discretion at the end of the meeting. If their recommendation is to withdraw, so let me hypothetically let's run through this subject. If the library board tells us on 6th, the mark, and if they tell us we want to withdraw and we want your answer on the 12th following your meeting, if we have a meeting on the 12th and that's their recommendation, are you going to go against it?
No.
Okay.
So
that's all we're asking. That's all we're saying. Let's not waste the time.
In whatever the issues may be, and we may be able to overcome those hurdles.
We could still talk about those on the 12th. That's a separate topic.
Not if Mark acts on the 6th.
That's only for the grant. That's only for the grant that Mark is acting.
But again, if they give feedback on one issue, right, and Mark back to us, and we could overcome that issue.
Mark has that authority.
Then we. But again, it's not the council that will then discuss it, and all of us get to vote on it at that point in time.
Okay.
Mark may decide that it's not overcomable, like, or we can't overcome it. Like, again, it should come back to the council.
If Mark sees there is something overcomable in 6 days from the 6th to the 12th, and he sees a clear path, then he got the authority.
Val.
Just ask a quick. So, Mark, do you know if the difference between an extension versus reapplying, does that reapplying, then do you have to go through a lot more? If it's an extension, you don't have to submit.
We've only asked for an extension on you might have remembered, the council mayor, we've asked for an extension before, but we never got to this process. We didn't even get to the referendum.
Right.
We did that once before. I think we got an extension once before for a certain amount, and we let it go. And now, of course, we're here. We had to reapply.
Right.
So we did ask for extension once, but we've never been this far down the road.
Right.
We've never had a building committee. We've never had a construction manager. We've never had an architect. I can only tell you what's being told to me is the process that we should follow.
Mm-hmm.
If the grant's not going to work, I can't say it enough. They want us to voluntarily forfeit.
Mm-hmm. I guess.
That's clear.
Okay. So, is there anyone else that has anything?
Madam Chair, can I just make a quick last comment?
Yes. Okay.
You did ask me when we got together earlier this evening what I thought we should do. And I've been adamant that I think we should withdraw immediately. And the reason is they have been very clear, very specific in their messages to us that they are not happy with what we're doing. And we have a message from them on the 16th saying that this meeting is a courtesy to hear our story, but they're not interested in what we're offering them. So basically, they're telling us they're not going to approve our plan. We run the risk by not allowing the town manager to withdraw to actually default, which would then not allow us to reapply. So I think this is a small ask to give the guy permission to act on our behalf. And if the state says that they're willing to do an extension, or they want to see some further plans from the architect and we're going to give us more time, then he won't withdraw. But everything that we have seen from them June of this year is that they are not happy with doing or not following their process, and they don't want to hear what we have to say.
Madam Chair, just real quick, just the only thing I want to say is I say this a lot in life, is that the authority that Mark's going to have, I'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it for that very important meeting on the 6th. So I don't see any, I don't understand the back and forth. I just don't get it. It's, I think it was important to have this meeting. We said we were going to have it. We're here now. We heard some good stuff from the public. I think we should move forward.
All right.
So we have a motion on the floor.
A second.
And we have a second. We've had discussion. Are we ready to move the question?
Yes.
All right. So again, for the record, it is clear that, did you want to restate the motion?
It's on the record. Can we just
It's on the record. Okay, very good. Are we all comfortable with the motion? We understand it. So, Madam Clerk, would you call the roll? An affirmation vote, Mark would get that ability. If you voice a negative vote, that would not be that case. Okay.
Madam Chair, it's an authorization. It's not an order for him to do anything.
Thank you.
It's
Authorization. Thank you, Mr. Town Attorney. All right, would you please call the vote, please?
Del Santo.
Yes.
DiPaolo.
No.
Dietrich.
Yes.
Lombardi.
Yes.
Morelli.
Yes.
Palmieri.
No.
Perry.
No.
Japlinski.
Yes.
Triano. Absolutely, yes. Thank you, Mark, because you're going to be there and at the front. And we're very appreciative of that. And the discussion continues. We will be together at our regular town council meeting on the 12th. And hopefully all of you will be back. You're spending as much time as we are here, so it's well received. Thank you, everybody. May I have a motion to adjourn?
I have a motion to adjourn, Chair.
I have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you so much. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for coming out.
Michael, you want to support sons in high school football? $20, buddy.